Oh, hi. I was just reading my favorite book, The Norton Anthology, Classic American Literature, shorter 8th edition, volume 2, 1865 to present. Present being about 2002, you know. It's got some really great stuff, covers some really great people. We generally start off with the Indians.
Don't you mean the correct term? Native Americans.
It's my video.
Who arrived around 20,000 BC, 40,000 BC. They used oral literature to tell epic narrative creation stories, poetry, and music. Long before the world was created, there was an island floating in the sky upon which the sky people lived. They lived quietly and happily. No one ever died or was born or experienced sadness. However, one day, one of the sky women realized she was going to give birth to twins. She told her husband, who flew into rage. That's one of the creation myths about how the earth became the earth.
That's on the book.
They used to teach stories about moral lessons, to teach information about why things are the way they are in the world. They had a huge respect for animals, super cool, but they weren't vegetarians. They also had a huge respect for nature, and they believed that everything has a spirit, has a name.
This isn't Pocahontas.
Oh, okay. Well, the Iroquois' origin story, which I just read a snippet of, talks about how good and evil were born into the world, and how the ocean became the ocean, and how the moon was put into the sky. Spoiler alert, Sailor Moon didn't put the moon in the sky.
Sailor Moon's not a part of classic American literature.
So from 1600 to 1800, we move into Puritanism, where the first American colonies were established. Here we have writers such as William Bradford, Anne Bradstreet, Jonathan Edwards, and Edward Taylor. Do you have anything to input there, Megan?
I hate you.
So sinners in the hands of an angry God is what brings us to the next snippet, where it says, uncoveted men walk over the pit of hell on a rotten covering. They used pen and paper instead of oral, such as literatures, as letters is the word, or diaries. They used diaries and letters to talk of God in everyday situations, and religion was a very inner experience because they heavily believed in their Bible. This brings us to 750 to 800s, when the Revolutionary War starts. North and South, who wins?
That's the Civil War.
Oh. This is thought to be the time of reason or enlightenment. The Bill of Rights is what the people are entitled to against every government, and what no just government should refuse or rest on inference. Thomas Jefferson said these words just like that.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
All of this giving birth to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, due to a large number of scientists, philosophers, and a lot of speeches that were given. The thought was to learn the wrongs of our past and grow as one in religious faith or intuition. Is that what that says? Starting a new America with new dreams and laws, with Benjamin Franklin, Patrick Henry, Thomas Paine, and Phyllis.
Can I have my video block back now?
Yeah, sure. The correct term was Native Americans.
Okay, well, you could have just said that. Totally could have just said that. So back to my favorite book. This is so exciting. So I guess I'll just pick up where she left off with Romanticism, which is from 1800, 1860. Okay. Well, Romanticism, nature, all that fun jazz, and then you have the like whole Gothic style, which would be more Poe. So they want to talk about like Walt Whitman and Poe. One of my favorite quotes by Walt Whitman would be, "Keep your face always towards the sunshine, and the shadows will fall behind you." Really positive. Whereas we have Poe over here writing something along the lines of, "I became insane with long intervals of horrible sanity." Yeah, that's a thing. It's a really depressing thing. Poe had a really sad life. Whereas Walt Whitman was more of what, like a free spirit? Thanks, Lewis. Real helpful.
Poe became a free spirit.
When he died. See, romanticism, champion for what? An individual's freedom, things like that. Nature, so much beautiful nature. Love it. Loved all of it. Then we get into transcendentalism. We're able to cut this, right? Okay, so I'm gonna be honest. I'm not quite sure what transcendentalism is. Lewis, can you help me out?
I mean, it's kind of like transcending and being one with the heavens. Well, big ideas like transcendentalism lead into bigger movements like the American Renaissance.
My other favorite quote from Little Women: "I'm not afraid of storms, for I'm learning how to sail my ship." Just sounds like a very Little Woman-y. Okay, so next I think it's kind of important to talk about realism, which was from about what, like 1850 to 1900. The time of realism would be more like Civil War and the Reconstruction.
So the Civil War is not the Revolutionary War. According to professors, it was a war between Great Britain and the 13 of its North American colonies.
Feelings of disillusionment. Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. So I guess probably one of the bigger things from this lovely book would be the adventures of Huck Finn. One of my favorite quotes that I remember from high school from that would be, Jim said that bees won't sting idiots. But I didn't believe that because I tried them lots of times myself and they wouldn't sting me. After realism, I think it's probably best to talk about modernism.
Did somebody say modernism? So modernism was really between like the early 1900s through 1950. You know, World War I, Great Depression, much like the American Dream. The death of the American Dream is one of the bigger concepts of modernism. Like, people really lost faith in their idea behind it. You know, you've got Fitzgerald with characters like Jay Gatsby and Daisy Buchanan. And you also got really weird experimental stuff like the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. Like, just listen to this quote I found. "For I have known them all already. I have known them in the mornings, afternoons. I have measured my life with coffee spoons." So then there's also the Harlem Renaissance.
I'm not helping you with the Harlem Renaissance, Lewis.
I wasn't going to ask you for help.
You were going to ask me for help because I'm black.
She's not wrong.
Well, I'm not helping you.
All right, well, all I wanted to say was it was a cultural movement in the African American communities in Harlem, New York. Am I saying anything offensive and racist yet?
Is that all you're going to say, or are you going to talk more about it? Because it's pretty important.
I mean, yeah, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about how it was inspired by the Jazz Age and the Roaring '20s. It was also taking place during Prohibition, which must have been a really crappy time to be a poet, because as we all know, most poets are alcoholics. But it brought about the birth of one of the greatest American poets, Langston Hughes. I found a great Langston Hughes poem I want to share with your audience.
Go ahead.
"I have known rivers. I have known rivers as ancient as the world and older than the flow of blood in the veins of humans. My soul has grown deep like rivers.
That's it really.
I bathed in the Euphrates when the dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo and it lulled me to sleep.
No, you didn't.
I looked at the Nile and raised pyramids above it.
When you were outside America.
I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans.
That must make you really old.
I have seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in sunset. I have known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like rivers." Isn't that just beautiful? Postmodernism is kind of where everyone just kind of loses their minds. It's from 1950 really through now. We're still living in a postmodernism era which is great because you get all kinds of great examples of contemporary American literature, and you also get this work that's influenced by the media. So as the media continues to grow, especially now through the computer boom, you get all kinds of weird stuff. Okay, so it's a poem by E. Cummings. And I imagine Nevermind Joe agreeably cheerfully remarked when surrounded by fat, stupid animals. The Jewess shrieked. The Messiah tumbled successfully into the world. The animals continued eating, and I imagine she heard them slobber, and in the darkness stood sharp angels with faces like Jim Europe.
What does that mean?
Postmodernism! That's what it means!
I don't like it.
You don't like it? I'm sorry.
It scares me.
I mean, I would talk about Kurt Vonnegut, but he would probably scare you too. I mean, the man wrote a book about the end of the world.
Well, that's just depressing.
I guess we don't get to have a happy closing to postmodernism.
Under the sea, under the sea, down where it's better, American literature's
What?
better, makes sense to me. Up on the shore they read all day, down here T.S. Eliot comes to play.